Guys, what's going on? What I want to do today is start talking about free response questions and how to respond to them. You're like, Mr. Price, I don't know. You don't know what kind of free response prompts will be given to you. No, I don't. We won't know until next Friday. Don't worry. What I'm going to do this week is a series of videos of what they would like be asking in free response. I said yesterday, you're only going to be given, 45 minutes to respond to any of this anyway. So you already have a short amount of time in here to do that. So don't, fret about that. It probably will not. I don't know if it's going to be a full essay. I don't know if it's very short answer questions, or maybe they want something in paragraph form. But let's practice with content. You may, if you want to, turn this video on, some other time or go back to it. But this is just something to instruct you about what kind of things, what are some good practices for free response. So that's what this video is for today. And we're going to look at how do you respond to short answer questions. And I told you, short answer questions is not like you write one phrase. I'm going to share these documents with you that I have today. Stay with me. I just typed out some answers instead of typing it out in front of you to spare you my disability challenge of not typing. So I think that's the only grade. We used to type back in the day, and that's the only course in high school I got a C from Mrs. Lloyd. So anyway, let's get started. It may take a while, so I'm pretty sure I don't know who's going to be able to stay with me, or you'll look at things, or you just get the gist of it. But I think this will be helpful as we keep on preparing towards May. All right, and then taking the online test. So what usually you would have on here is, and this is an example from Marco Learning here, I think, on here, and we're going to do these questions. You usually would have, for your short answer question, usually, and this is not going to probably be the case. It might be 5 short answer questions, maybe 6, and maybe 1 short answer question. It may be something else. Nevertheless, back in the day, last year and prior to the year, next year, when things go back to normal, you had 3 short answer questions to, respond to. And the last one gave you a choice. So, and you can just kind of see that here on here. And you would have these short answer questions, as you guys can see here. So, and these would be the ones you get last one, you get a choice right here. You get a choice between either 3 or 4, and it had different time periods. And as you know, though, the time periods are going to be short until 1945. So that's why some of this will not apply. But I think we're going to do these examples. Now, some things here that I want you to kind of be very aware of. I'm going to, this is all about the free. Oh my God. That's terrible. Boy, what was that? I don't know what I'm doing. Let me just do the kind of the highlight here. There you go. I'm an idiot, as you know. All about free response, possible format, short answer questions. These are questions that are given to you with prompts. And usually what they did before, you had some kind of opposing viewpoint questions. You had a cartoon or map in here, and then 2 generalized prompts from certain time periods. So I want to tell you, I'm giving you some of the biggest hints right now. You read the question all parts, because usually you're not just given a question with 1 part to answer. They give you 2 or 3 parts to respond to. So sometimes you can say, hey, I answered part B and part A. So that's why you have to kind of read all the parts in here. Make sure you're clear about what the question is asking and what to do. Now, here's the big thing. Use specific based evidence. And the reason why I'm face palming in here is because this is where most kids fail. You're not prepared with a lot of evidence or historical examples in here. So you have to use specific based kind of responses in here. Mr. Price, I forgot the date for the Louisiana Purchase. It's fine. That's not what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about? Not knowing the Louisiana Purchase and kind of citing one of your examples for one of the events under President Thomas Jefferson. That's the thing is that really gets the graders if you just generalize things like slavery and indentured servitude was hard labor. It was very intense. It really, made a lot of people, tired and want to run away. You're not saying anything in that sentence. Get to the point, answer the question, be specific. Use examples like what I even said yesterday, a Bacon's Rebellion, a Prosser's Rebellion of 1800, a Dingmark Vesey kind of conspiracy, those types of things in here that you would use. You use specific factual information as much as you can recall. Please don't try to game the system. I know some of you will. Well, like, oh, I don't know the specifics of that and everything. I'll Google that and everything. Please don't do that on here. So you answer the question, did you? The main thing to do is answer the question. Even if you're online and you're kind of quick here, please go back and say, wait a minute, I don't think I answered the question. Retype, or if you're writing, you want to send a picture, rewrite it, make sure you answer. And it frustrates the graders, whoever's evaluating this, when you don't answer the question. Address the prompt, please. Again, don't waste your time. Just take a deep breath and make sure you understand what's going on here. You cite evidence from the sources by giving examples. Do not copy sentences from any document, ever. Or I guess I'm going to threaten you here. Yes, I'll threaten you. Don't do that. Use your own words. Mr. Price, what if I used a phrase like manifest destiny on there? It's fine. They use it in a document. That's fine. What if I, cited like Ben Franklin was the source, on here, and I said Ben Franklin? That's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to use a, sentence that you've copied from the document and put it on there to your responses. That's what you do not do. Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm getting kind of tense there, but I just cannot I don't want you to waste your time and really just, mess up your grade by copying. Don't do that. Do not copy. You can use a phrase. You can cite what's the source, other author, or of the kind of document or something, that prompt that's in there. That's fine. You can do that. But please do not, again, copy sentences. Cite evidence from the sources. Explain how your evidence supports your answer. This is called ACE. You can see that online. You can go to YouTube and see all the kind of strategies in here. And that's what they call it. Like, answer a question. You're citing the evidence from the sources and you explain how your evidence supports your answer. All right. Use clear and complete sentences. Do not use bullet points. All right. So do not try to say, again, shorten it up. You do want to use complete sentences in any type of free response that you will be doing online. I will guarantee you this, just kind of going over this, there will not be any kind of, free response section that says you can use bullet points. You can use phrases. You can draw a Venn diagram, which we all hate anyway, or some kind of table. Mr. Price, sorry if I draw a table. It's not going to be. That's one thing I am certain I will bet you $1 trillion that it's never going to be say it's okay to put bullet points. It's okay to a table or something, or you don't have to write in complete sentences. You will have to respond in complete sentences. All right. So keep your answer confined to that was before in the writing box given. I don't know how they're going to do it online. Get to the point. Just get to the point and provide examples to support specific factual information. Do the task order of each question. And if there are some different parts to a question and it's A or B or A, B, and C, I don't know how they're going to do it online. They might already have it set up for you. Just make sure it's clear to them. I have a pretty sure that maybe online they might have it already kind of set up in there. And let me take this off here and kind of go down there. Given choices a prompt, answer the one that you have the most specific knowledge about. Please don't answer the one that you think that you know. Mr. Price, the prompt says talk about the change over time of slavery from the 18th century to the 19th century. That's one of your choices, as opposed to the economics of the early 20th century. Now, you're going to go to slavery and choose that, but you don't know anything about slavery from the 18th century to 19th century. You only know things like slavery was bad, slavery in the colonial times, which they went from indentured servitude to slaves. You're saying a lot of generalities. You're not talking about Creole culture, Gullah culture. You're not talking about revolts of 1712, 1739, the Stoner Rebellion, or even the conspiracy in 1741. You're not talking about any of that. You're not talking about how, again, that South Carolina populations was, larger than the colonial population in here. You're only talking about, you might even make the mistake, God forbid, that you're talking about, oh yeah, they pick cotton and all those things. That you're not talking about the population growth, how it increased, again, in the millions from one another. You think you know slavery. You don't know slavery. You've heard it since the first grade. You don't know that. I know one thing. You may be able to pick out specific examples about the economic changes from the early 1900s up until to 1929. You know about progressivism, about, again, that Teddy Roosevelt and the kind of control of the trust, getting rid of the bad trust. The 1920s reflected the Gilded Age of the laissez-faire economics and the kind of trickle-down theorists, and the industry flourished in the 1920s. You probably know more of that, but you don't choose it because you think you know slavery. Do not choose something that you do not have specific examples about. Now, saying that, let's just say both choices or three choices, you're not really confident in all three. Write the one that you actually do think you know more about. If it comes down to something, that you've hardly heard of and everything, so to something that you're more familiar with, you give it your best shot with that. But please don't always just quickly jump to something like, oh yeah, I know the Civil War better than the Mexican-American War. Well, ask yourself that. Can you give some good examples from the Mexican-American War? You might have studied and prepared yourself a little bit more than that than the Civil War, even though you've heard the Civil War since first grade. Please remember, I'm begging you, just think about that. Please. All right. Great. You guys, I probably lost everybody now, but let's go to sample questions. And by the way, even though this is in the short answer question format, this definitely could be something that you would have as a question online, because they're going to probably give you some sources. They're not just going to give you probably some prompt to write about. They want you to interpret a document, interpret a cartoon or something to this matter. So what we're going to do, I know it may take some time and you guys are already turned me off, which I don't, it's fine with me like that. This is for like the one or two of you who will, kind of hang in there for this. What do you do anytime you see maybe a document or a source? What do you do? What I've already said since the beginning of the year. Well, what I would do, here comes the my magic pen here. You go to the source and you say to yourself, well, let me take a look here and see who it is that's speaking. President Monroe and the Monroe Doctrine. It's already got me thinking about, all right, I already know the Monroe Doctrine. That's a deal breaker. I assume that you know the Monroe Doctrine if you've been in this course. Monroe Doctrine, Marbury versus Madison, Washington's farewell address, deal breakers, things that you should know, you should study, basics that I am thinking that you can do in your sleep. Oh, that maybe you don't know all the provisions, but you know it's foreign policy. You know it's about European nations staying out of the Western Hemisphere. And you may not know about, they said that they're not going to interfere with the existing colonies here. And that reason why at this time, because of 1823, a lot of Latin American nations were striving for their independence, kicking kind of like their old colonials out, specifically Spain. So there's no, just because Spain goes out, America was worried about all the other European countries gaining new colonies in the Western Hemisphere. So, you know that. Now, I look at the other person here. So, let me get this. And I see is, and I said, Dr. Alejandro Alvarez, the Monroe Doctrine from Latin America point of view. Now, I don't know who he is. Okay. So, and he may be a world-renowned scholar for whatever, that may be so. But I do kind of think if the Monroe Doctrine is President Monroe and you have two documents here, it's going to be the opposing viewpoint. And it says from the Latin American point of view. And if you know anything about history, most people in Latin America do not see the kind of all great America, protecting Latin American nations and protecting democracies, protecting their whole promoting, Latin American interests and respecting their kind of sovereignty and independence. So you see that. So let's read in here and see what they're saying. And the language sometimes will get to you in the vocabulary, but you already know, even if you kind of misinterpret some of the words and vocabulary, you don't understand it, you kind of already know what he's going to say. That's the genius of always identifying maybe a source. It's going to be always hard for cartoons, except for people like Thomas Nast or maybe Herb Block or something like that. But you're not going to, you kind of already know in here. So the political system of the Allied powers is essentially different in respect from that of America. This difference proceeds from that which exists in the respective governments into the defense of their own, which has been achieved by the loss of so much blood and treasure and matured by the wisdom of the most enlightened citizens under which we have enjoyed unexampled felicity. It's not just a, television show, you have this internal happiness. This whole nation is devoted. He's talking about the United States. He's talking, you can reread it for yourself for that part because I went through it kind of fast. But you underline, and I know it's going to be online, but you can have a marker, but you may be able, you can take notes, even if it's online, to yourself, handwritten notes about what they're trying to say. We owe it, therefore, to candor and to amicable relations, friendly relations existing between the United States and those powers. He's talking about the European powers. Declare that we should consider any attempt on their part to extend their system. And he's alluding to how, most of European nations are still run by, monarchies. To any portion of their hemisphere is dangerous to our peace and safety. Stay out of the Western Hemisphere and into our relations. That's what he's saying. With the existing colonies or dependencies of any European power, we have not interfered and shall not interfere. Not interfering with your colonies. Not interfering. You can have those. We're not going to start wars and conflicts. But with the governments who have declared their independence and maintain it, and whose independence we have on great consideration, on just principles, acknowledge we cannot view any interposition for the purpose of oppressing them or controlling any of their manner, their destiny by any European power in any other light than as a manifestation of an unfriendly disposition toward the United States. So an attack on them or some kind of interference upon them will be somewhat of an attack on the United States in a way. It's not a military alliance. It's just saying that the U.S. has, really, we have some kind of like, again, an unwritten agreement that interfering with the Latin American nation is getting too close to the United States and what we want to do in our region of the world. We're going to leave Europe alone. We're not going to interfere with Europe. That's what Monroe and really his Secretary of State, John Quincy Adams, who basically wrote this in a way, kind of a genius guy as far as like coming up with this as we'll set precedent. All right, let's see what the second document says here. During the 19th century, the U.S. built up alongside of this doctrine personal policy, which does not represent the interests of the continent. There you go. We've already figured this out. But quite the reverse, wherefore it inspires fear rather than sympathy in the states of Latin America. This so-called policy of hegemony, dominance, consists of intervention by the United States on behalf of its own interests in the domestic affairs of certain states of Latin America, especially those that are situated in or near the Caribbean Sea. And you think about the Caribbean, you think about Haiti, you think about Puerto Rico, and of course the big one, the big island archipelago is Cuba. So in there, and those born in the Gulf of Mexico, Central America. This policy is a well-nigh natural result of tremendous territorial, economic, and maritime superiority of the United States. So there you have it right there. So you really see that that's an opposing viewpoint. Now let's get to the nitty-gritty. And this is just so grabs. Looking at these prompts this morning, as I say, and I'm typing up my responses and how much, it made me think about what the answers would be and what would be the exemplary answers. So let's take a look. And again, take a deep breath, get something online. If just one part, 2 parts, or 3 parts, I would scan or read briefly over all 3 parts in a way. Briefly describe one major difference between Monroe's Alvarez historical arguments. All right, regarding the United States. That's right. Briefly explain how one specific historical event between 1800 and 1848. Wow, I'm a little bit worried about that because, I don't know. Nothing comes to my mind, initially about that. Anyway, I'm moving on because I only have 45 minutes. Briefly explain how one specific historical event developed from the period supports Alvarez's argument. So I see what I need to do. All right. So what I will do before I put my response is do what? Am I ready to jump to my response? No. You notice how I kind of scanned over and read that, for all 3 parts. What I probably need to do to make sure I answer the prompt and answer this part of this question is go back and reread it. All right. And make sure in there. So briefly, matter of fact, I'll get the highlight again. Briefly describe one major difference between Monroe and Alvarez's historical arguments regarding the United States foreign policy. Bam. So let's do this. And don't worry, you don't have to look at this a lot, but you can see what the kind of foundations and how. And you know what? This is good review. You're getting review as well as getting an example right here. So President Monroe's doctrine's main message is that the United States will have a benign and fair relationship with the countries in the Western Hemisphere and respect current European colonies. His doctrine was used in support of Cuban independence by the U.S. and future proclamations by Presidents Theodore Roosevelt, Woodrow Wilson, a la the corollary and the moral diplomacy. Dr. Alvarez, and you notice I'm using the people. I said you can use their names. That's what you should do. Sees the United States as aggressors, interfering in domestic affairs of independent countries in the hemisphere. Alvarez's viewpoint can be supported by events. And I just threw these in there because I knew there's some quick examples, even though I'm going to have to expand upon this in the next part. But I'm a little bit limited in the next part by a time period. So you really have to pay attention about time periods and what limits you. Can be supported by events with the Mexican-American War in 1846 and numerous interventions in the U.S. in the early 20th century. All kinds of interventions. There you go. And I definitely would earn whatever credit they're going to give, like 1, 2, or points in here. Now let's go back here, please. And let's go to B. Go to my favorite thing here. I know you're going to like briefly explain how one specific historical event or development from the period 1800 to 1848. Anytime you see that, you need to really like emphasize that you are really designated to a certain time period. You can't really go out of that range, or the graders or whoever's going to do this are like, oh, you went out of the range. You're talking about the Civil War. You're talking about the Spanish-American War. You're out of the range. All right. You're talking about the American Revolutionary War. You're out of the range. Stay in that range. All right. That is not explicitly mentioned in the excerpts here. I'll get to that. So, could be used to support Monroe's argument. So they're not specifically mentioned. I don't think they mentioned too much anyway. So I think I just kicked the camera there. But so what we're going to do, I'm going to give you an example. This is a tough one. And I was thinking to myself, from my vast knowledge and my prior knowledge, I says, wait a second here. I don't know really the Monroe Doctrine as applied in U.S. history between those years. You can't, it doesn't really jump out at you. Maybe again with the War of 1812, but you're not thinking about Latin American nations. Only thing I could just recall just from my prior knowledge was the British in the Falkland Islands over in Argentina under John Tyler, and he didn't really do too much. Then it did come hit me. This may happen to you too. You might have to think a little bit fast. I said, well, what can I say in the Mexican-American War? I said, oh yeah, the Oregon Territory. James Polk used the Monroe Doctrine as a warning to European nations once he was in office as president in 1845. He was inclining the United States to fulfill its manifest destiny. And he negotiated the U.S. into a treaty with Great Britain in 1846. Resolution of the Oregon Territory. Again, went too much up here. So, would eventually instigate a war with Mexico in 1846 that was extended its influence to the Pacific Ocean with the acquisition of California. And that's him using the Monroe Doctrine. All right, good enough. Let's go. All right, just kick the camera again. Like this. So briefly explain how one specific historical event, and again, you get this 1800 to 1848 here. You see, so that range right there is not explicitly mentioned in the excerpts. Could be used to support Alvarez's argument. So I'm going to need something to show that. And as you guys saw the sneak down here, that it's Cuba, man. It's the Platt Amendment. It's the Teller Amendment in here. Teller Amendment came first, and it said that the Teller Amendment says, hey, we're going to really, you say that once we kick Spain out of Cuba, we will actually have leave you independent. All right. So, and that's the thing is, but then the Platt Amendment says, no, we were able to intervene in Cuba to preserve its independence, basically becoming a protectorate for about over 30 some years, all the way into the 1930s, until the like good neighbor policy of Stimson and FDR, again here to, really give it more of its autonomous independence in a way. And actually, attaining Guantanamo Bay as permanently as a, important, port for the U.S. And as we know from today, housing some of our, terrorists or enemies of the United States there in Guantanamo Bay, becoming a protectorate of the United States. Like, Vietnam was like the so-called, colony / protectorate of the French. Or dominion of the U.S., dominated by the U.S. Very good. All right, so don't worry, you can look through these things, see how I answer this, instead of just hearing me gab all over this too, in a way. And I'm sure I'm tiring you guys out, but hopefully a few of you can hang with it. Now, you've seen the picture of always the giant, I always call her the naked lady. Like, again, it's like, Mr. Price, what are you looking at here? I mean, scantily clad giant, Caucasian, almost in a way divine lady. And immediately since the first grade, probably you show this most across the nation, any person would immediately start thinking manifest destiny, even though this painting was, around 1871, I believe. So on here, sorry, I don't have the source on this one. They usually would have it for that. That this is manifest destiny, the divine Colombian lady leading the United States into progress. It's been dissected before. So it should be a fairly straightforward thing. And this is what usually would happen. You have a cartoon, a painting, some kind of, map or something that you need to interpret. So what do we do? Well, we kind of, since I'm familiar with the painting, I don't have to do a lot of, analysis of that. So it's pretty familiar. A lot of times you'll get a cartoon that that we'll do in the future that you're going to see. And you're like, I don't know what exactly it's. I can't even see it hardly like that. You don't understand it. But this one, kind of, it's a layup. Use the image above in your knowledge of United States history and answer parts A, B, and C. Right. Explain the point of view, reflect the image regarding one of the following. I don't need it for all three. Migration, technology, American Indians. I'll choose American Indians to see on there. So that's what I think I'll do. I'm going to read all three, briefly explain how one element of the image expresses the point of view you identified. Really, A and B are very similar. So B, I can answer almost in A, so I'm going to leave that out. I'm going to use more of the images. What's shown in the image that I need to prove my point of view about with the American Indians. You get that? So that's why sometimes it's good to kind of briefly read all three. Explain how the point of view you identify in point A helped to shape one specific United States government action. And always citing some kind of example that may not be explicitly in the source or in the painting or the cartoon. So let's take a look here. And the cartoon. It's good that I did choose that because since the cartoon, which is, get out of the way here. Sorry about that. The artist is supposed to showing that Anglo-American dominance will push out the American Indians. That would be a positive thing. And just for the sake of me, because I'm kind of looking over that should be all capital there. But don't worry about some of your free responses. They're not looking for always correct grammar and correct spelling in social studies. They're looking for the main thing, and in my main theme here, knowing specific factual information, citing examples. What content do you know? That's the main thing I want to get across in social studies. English paper, English responses and free responses is different, somewhat different than social studies responses, as these guys are always looking for answer the prompt. What do you know? Tell them, like, again, can you answer this that, hey, did you learn something in U.S. history course and show them so they can pass you? The divine Colombian American lady will bring progress, light, and civilization. Again, that you see how just very quickly as almost the light into the dark here. It's like that, and the Indians are kind of in awe. And we're going to answer that more. Let me go back to B real quick, make sure. Explain how one element of the image expresses the point of view. And it asks for one element. And so if we go down here, the Native Americans are depicted as half naked and very non-Anglo-American. They are fleeing the intimidation of technology and progress. They cannot understand or adjust to this as implied they are fleeing to this progress and power. In addition, I did write one more. The Plains Indians' main source of food and supplies, the buffalo, are going with them, alluding to their extinction as making bright. Actually, that's kind of two elements there. So kind of maybe, this right here may be a little bit fluff. So not necessarily needed. I don't think it's going to hurt me, but unless I'm, thinking about time. So all I needed was this kind of one element in there, and bam, you get it. These people will be definitely grading very fast too as well. Explain how the point of view you identified in Part A helped shape one specific United States government action. Well, the Pacific Railway Acts here, or Railroad Acts, in here of 1862 laid the foundation of America to fulfill their manifest destiny by connecting the East and West. After its completion in 1869, it set precedent for further expansion to Indian territory, like the Black Hills area of Lakota. In this area, gold was found and more railroads were built, splitting up Lakota land and violating the provisions of the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1851. Yeah, not the only answer. I mean, you want to talk about other events in here. It's complete. You can talk about the Spanish-American War in 1898, because let's take a look here. My apologies to you guys. I did not emphasize this, but 1845 to 1900, you have a lot. Matter of fact, you have the Mexican-American War that you can do of 1846 and 1848 is kind of extending this kind of manifest destiny here. Things that that's what you write about in here as you see the expansion of the West. Some of the Indian Wars, what I've always said here, you could use the Battle of Little Bighorn in 1876. I always say don't forget your 76's dates here, which can help you. Bacon's Rebellion in 1676. Of course, the Declaration of Independence, 1776, 1876, the Battle of Little Bighorn. 1976 was just our bicentennial of the independence of the United States. So that's what I use those acts in there. All right. So, and that's it, violating Fort Laramie Treaty of 1851. I'm more knowledgeable of U.S. history than you. I'm not trying to be a braggart or anything like that, because this is my concentration. Your concentration on U.S. history, so that's why I'm able to kind of come up with a lot of these facts here. Let's go into the last one. Some of you guys are maybe hanging, or probably maybe Fort Wayne. And what they usually do is give you a choice on the last one. That's not going to be probably on the online that you're going to take. You're definitely going to probably give some choices in certain parts of it. But I'm just trying to say what they would usually do. And you can read both of them. Actually, I don't think this one is a bad one from the 1920s. And it would be in your time period, expect you to know for May, is to answer A, B, and C. Confine your responses to period 1854 to 1754. To 1800. All right, so that's where I would confine my questions to be. Move this over a little bit. So, briefly describe one specific historical difference between the policies of the Federalists as typified by John Adams and the policies of the Democrat Republicans as typified by Thomas Jefferson. All right, so a difference. B describes a similarity between those two. C, one historical effect of election of 1800. This should be easy. You guys already know this in a way, but the thing is that I don't think you do know. You know some differences, but I don't know if you've exactly forgotten about what Adams did on his presidency, that representative of his, Federalist policies. And what Jefferson did represented his Republican policy. This is what review will do in the next month for us. It'll get you prepared for your online test. So let's move on down here and see my response to A. 3A. John Adams, who can be labeled as a moderate Federalist, we know this. He wasn't a strong. Washington never considered himself part of a party. promoted anti-French sentiments during his presidency by passing Alien Sedition Acts of 1798. I have dates in here. Again, you don't have to have dates in here. You just have to know, like, wait, what happened under Adams and would represent him of the Federalist power. And the first thing you think of, you go through your table in your head of Federalists. Pro-British, big government on here. They want a strong central government power here. They want to expand that power, in here for, that's what the Federalist Party is about. You think about Hamilton, you think about John Adams, you think about, Chief Justice John Marshall, representing these kind of like big time Federalists at this time. The Republicans, Democratic Republicans, you got your, Jefferson, and you got, really James Madison, who's kind of a converted kind of like, Republican here that, being representative state power. All right. They want a weak central government, kind of a more of a pro-French side too. So that should run through your head. Once Jefferson was in office, he did, and again, we're talking about the differences here. He ended the Sedition Acts and deportations and then reduced the naturalization process for citizenship from 14 years to 5 years. Immigrants were a strong constituency of the Republicans. And you said, Mr. Price, the graders will be confused if you just say the Republicans. They're smart. They're all history teachers. They know you're talking about the Democratic Republican, the DRs at this time. All right. Matter of fact, they'll probably give you bravo for knowing the difference between those. Let me go back briefly because we describe one specific similarity. And again, Jefferson is always like, oh, I'm not a Federalist. And we know how he contradicted himself in office here. And what did I say? John Adams was a proponent of using the federal power to extend influence and control. He built up the Navy of the U.S. to deal with the actions of the French in the Atlantic during the Quasi-War. Jefferson as well used federal power to obtain the Louisiana Territory in 1803. I don't know if this is constitutional or not. Do I have the authority to do this? It's too much of a good deal. It's like, oh my God, 3 cents of an acre like that, so $15 million, come on, so he's telling James Monroe, yeah, seal the deal. I don't know if this might have to go to the courts or something. Maybe we can amend the Constitution. But anyway, and also too, the Embargo Act of 1807, he's really exerting his power to, having, his, the small naval force that he had out there, and restricting trade from the U.S. with any, European countries at all, in 1807. So that's really heavy-handed by the central government. All right. So, and again, you see me always going back, and I don't know what you have online because I'm always want to make sure that I'm answering the question. That's what I'm trying to beat you over the head about. C, briefly explain one specific historical fact election of 1800, which Democrat Republican Jefferson defeated John Adams. Yeah, we know that. They even gave you the results. I think you know that, of course. We know this. And the big thing is this. Why is it called a revolution of 1800? Peaceful transfer of power. Because it set the precedent of nonviolent exchange from opposite political parties. This would set the example in the United States and the world of a peaceful transfer of power between, actually I should say here, between opposing parties. And democratic ideas working for the next 200 plus years. It also ushered in the tradition of political parties competing for power in the national government. Washington was thinking maybe we will not have, political parties, but I think by his second term, he kind of see the factions that have been kind of formulating into formal political parties. And this would be set to the kind of precedence, this election for the next 200 plus years and then it kind of resulted in sometimes a major third political party, but really dominated by 2 political parties. So there you go, guys. I mean, that's a good review, actually. I think not only a free response, a type of free response question in here, but also a good way of how to answer them. And I implore you, I really think all the students have been responding to me. And actually, a lot of students just responded to me just saying, Hey, Mr. Price, hope you're doing all right. Just saying kind words just as much. I hope you guys are doing all right. Good to see you. Good to hear your annoying voice, maybe like that. That was very nice. So please text, do a comment down below. That says that maybe that's relevant. You still need some clarification. It might be this evening. It might be tomorrow. It might be 3 weeks from now in a way that you're saying that, like, I went back to your video about the SAQs and, let me, since we got update April 3rd, do you think we need to know this, or how do you respond to this? I need practices. This is a great time for you guys to get ready for this online test and to get credit. I'm telling you, graders will be very, I think, forgiving for a lot of things here. So you have a good opportunity time. So I know you guys are probably going crazy with me. So I'll end it. So I'll continue on this week. Okay, see you.